Hi everyone, welcome back to this channel. This is a short summary of Zig and all you need to know to start learning the language. So first, to create a variable, we either use const or var. So for const variables, you do not need to specify the type and it will be worked out at compile time. For var variables, you do. Const variables are immutable, can't be changed. Var variables can be changed. So we have to specify the type, and we do this with a colon. So colon I32 is specifying the type. So by default, you need to use every local variable you create in Zig. So to tell the compiler you don't want to use it, use the underscore equals example 1. The basic number types are these. So we have I, U8. So what the U stands for is it means it can't be negative, and the number is the amount of bits. Here's the minimum and maximum values for U8, U16, U32. And I means it can be negative, and the number's the same. So these are the max values for I8, I16, and I32. Float types, they basically just control the accuracy. So float types are below 0 decimal numbers, and the more bits you use, the more accurate the numbers. Bool types, true or false. There's no string type in Zig. Instead, we use U8s for characters and slices. So here we create a U8, which is basically a number between 0 and 255, and it represents a letter. It can represent a letter. We can also create an array like this. If we use an underscore in the square brackets, it means the compiler will infer the size. If we want to specify, we can put a 3 inside it. And a slice is basically a pointer with the array size. So basically this will be a pointer to the A letter and give the size of 3 because there's 3 letters. We can also use a slice, make a slice out of an array. So we're using here word 0 ... So that basically will create a slice linking to word. And here's the basic syntax of a slice. So the top is an immutable slice to U8s because we have const. Then we have U8, square brackets U8, mutable. It's a mutable slice to U8s, meaning you can change the values. And then we have an array of U8s. So console output, to get console output, we need to import the standard library. And then we can use std.debug.print. We then have to use this syntax. So we have the quotation marks for the text, comma, dot, curly braces. The curly braces is where variables will go. And we will do something like this. So text, new line character. We can also create curly braces in the quotation marks to print variable. So say, for example, we want to print an integer. So we create an integer number equals 10, and then we want to print it. So number equals curly braces, dot, curly braces, the number. So that's how you print variables. For different types, you need to specify what they are. So to print a character, use C. So here we have const letter equals A. So if we don't put anything in the curly braces, it will just print the integer value. If you put C, it will print the letter. So this will print 97, the first one, A, the second one. To print a slice, we use S. So here we create a slice, ABC, and then we put S, and this will print the slice, ABC. To print a slice of numbers, you can create a slice of anything. So here we create a number array, and then we create a slice out of the number array. So we're linking to the array, 1, 2, 3, and then we put any to specify it's not text, but it's a slice, and this will print 1, 2, 3. To print floats, we use D for decimal. If we don't use D, then it will be scientific notation, so you have E0 at the end. If you don't want that, so then use D. For functions, the public means it can be used outside of this Zig file, so you can use it in other Zig files. The main function needs to be public all the time. Fn stands for function, main is the name, in the parentheses go the parameters, and void is the type. So here's another example. We have fn add, so it's not public. It's a function called add. It takes in an integer called A, an integer called B, and returns an integer. So input variables are immutable by default. So if you do this, you'll get an error. You can't do this. If you want to make them mutable, then you can make them pointers. So a pointer will link to the original variable that you created when you called the function. Or you can create a local copy and then change the local copy. So if statements are generally the same as any C language, really. So for example, we have if user age is less than 18, print too young. Else if it's over 65, say too old. Else valid age. So basically exactly the same as C languages. If statements need to be a bool value, that's one difference. So you can't say if number. In C, you can do this. So in C, a true bool is basically not 0. that doesn't work in Zig. It has to be it has to be a bool value. So you have to say something like number not equals 0. This will work. So to check multiple values, use and to check either value, use or. So switch statements, they're basically the same in idea, but a bit different in syntax. So here we have constant message equals switch. So this is basically setting the result of the switch to message, which will be a slice. So here we have 0 dot 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 17, 18 dot 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 65. This basically will mean if it's between 0 and 17, do this. If it's between 18 and 65, do this. If it's between 65 and 100, do this. Then, for example, we can print this. The thing is, we will get an error here, and it will say, error, switch must handle all possibilities. So if you look at user age, it's a U8, and a U8 is 0 to 255. So we need to cover all these eventualities. So what we could do is this, 101 to 255, and that will cover the rest and say age out of range. If you want to be just lazy and not have to care about this, you could just put else, and that will cover all eventualities. For loops. So for loops are a bit different. So here we create an array that's undefined. Undefined means we haven't set what the values are. And then we're going to have a for loop here. So what we do is we create an I variable. So first we have the parentheses, which 0 to 5. So this basically will go from 0 to 4 and stop. And that we create a temporary I variable, which will basically be a usize. And a usize is an unsigned variable. It depends on the system you're using. Normally it's 64 bits, and it's used normally for indexes of arrays. So here we have to use int cast because we're converting a usize into an i32. But we're basically just setting the values to 1, 2, 3, 4. Like that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is what we want to set. And we can create a slice of this to make it easier to print, and then just print the slice with any, and this will print 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's a for loop. We can also use an iterating for loop like this, so we can put for array and then put value. Value here will be an i32 as it's an array of i32. So we're going to print each individual i32 based on the size of the array. Like so, it will print this. Okay, while loop, they're basically the same, honestly, the same as C. Break and continue also work exactly the same for loops and while loops. The data structures, we have structs, which is just a collection of variables. You can also use methods in structs, but I'm not going to go into that in this video. To create a struct, then you do this. So if you want to create a copy of one, you do this. It's basically like a constructor itself. So you can set the values like this. Then we have unions. Unions are basically where you have, it could be all three, it could be either type, and you choose which one, and the size will be the max size. So here will be F64, 64 bits long, but you choose which it is. We have an enum, which is basically like enumerating values. And then we have errors. Errors are basically a type of enum that are a bit special. And let's go through errors now. So we have here, we have the add function I had earlier, and we're going to use the adding error. So what we're going to do is we want to return the adding error from add if something goes wrong. So we have overflow high, overflow low. That means if the number goes too high or goes too low. And we're going to put an exclamation point on the add. So this means that add could return an error, or it could return an i32. It's basically a union. It's either an error or it's an i32. You can also specify like this. So adding error, exclamation point i32. That means it could return this specific error or an i32. Let's make this a bit bigger. So we need to put a max i32, min i32, and then we're going to check to see if there's an overflow, meaning the number went too high or the number went too low. The thing is, we'll actually get an error if we do this because we have to handle error cases. If a function could return an error, you need to handle that situation. The simplest way is to simply use an if. So you can say if result res, which basically means if the result wasn't an error, then we make a temporary variable res and then print that, which will basically be an i32 in this situation. And then we can use else and this will be an error. So this will be basically means if it wasn't an error, print it. If it was an error, print the error, show error. An alternative is catch. What catch does is basically sets the default value if there's an error. So basically, if there's an error, then make the value 0. And the other thing we can use is try. And what try will do is it will return the error from this function and go to the previous function that called this. If we're in the main function, then it will simply close the program and show you the error. For this, we need to return an error from the main function, otherwise this won't work. Okay, other files. So if you want to import other files, first we have this main zig file, and we want to use printing.zig. So we want to use some printing from this. First of all, what we need to do is link it. So first we say const printing equals @import printing.zig. So these are in the same folder. If they're not in the same folder, you need to specify the folder, but they're in the same, so we can just say printing.zig. And then we can just call printing.println, and then this will work. This will use the println function. The only thing you need to make sure is they need to be public. If they're not public, it won't work. So finally, running zig, what you want to do is you want to open some terminal or PowerShell in the folder of your file, of the main file, and you want to run this command, zig run main.zig, or whatever your main file is called. You can also build an exe, like so. And there are 4 release modes. So we have debug, which is by default, release safe, which optimizes but keeps safety checks, release fast, which optimizes for speed but no safety, and release small, which optimizes for size and not safety. To do this, we basically go zig build exe main.zig -o, letter O, release safe. That would be a release safe build. Of course, there are loads of things I didn't mention in this. If you want to learn about some more things, then you can look at my Zig tutorial series. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Let me know if you have any questions. See you guys next time.